I'm Megan Cusick, and welcome to another episode of Vehicle Care Rockstars. Some people have a problem saying no, or to look at it from a different angle, perhaps they just say yes way too much. Bill Snow, owner-operator of Rad Air Complete Car Care in Cleveland, Ohio, fully admits he's one of them. He has a huge case of FOMO, or fear of missing out, and wants to do it all, which is why he owns his own car care business, started a race team, and does a podcast as well. What's behind this FOMO, and how does he keep all those balls in the air? Let's find out. So, can you tell us about how you got started in the industry and what your family's history is with it?
Yeah, I'll start with my family's history. So my dad was always a car person. Now, he didn't have a toolbox in the garage and he didn't work on his own stuff, but he always had cool cars and was always around the car community. And he would drag me to car shows, not for cars he was displaying, but we would just go look at them. And we did that when I was young, all the way up through, recent time. But then he'd also take me to motorsports events. So we'd go to all kinds of races as spectators. And it was in the early 80s, he had opened up a business that was focused in the automotive space. So they installed car stereos, car alarms, sunroofs, and air conditioning systems as well. That led to him opening up 3 Tough Coat Dyno franchises as well. They're not around anymore. They used to do rust proofing when cars would rust out very quickly. And I always had envisioned that I would work for the family company. He was semi-absentee owner, but his business partner ran the business into the ground. So he left corporate life, went and saved the business so that they could sell it, and then he went back into corporate life. So I got introduced to the automotive aftermarket at a very early age. And the funny thing is, I always envisioned I would drive to work in a Porsche 911. Now, being in the industry, I know that's a little bit unrealistic, but that's always what I envisioned doing. But it was through relationships my father had that I got a job at a dealership. And I was hired to wash cars. And the funny thing is, for the first several weeks, I did anything but wash cars. I took the trash out, I drove customers home, I picked up parts, I went to other states to pick up cars that they wanted to sell, what's called a dealer trade. But I got to meet a lot of the great mechanics at that dealership. And they started showing me, hey, here's how you do a brake job. Here's why I'm fixing this way. Can you come and hold this while I put it in? It gave me the opportunity to really understand a lot about what goes into automotive. And fast forward many years, I'm graduated school and I'm in the corporate world, and we're on a family vacation, and my wife's car breaks down an hour from the beach. And I buy a tool set on the side of the road at a truck stop. I take the thermostat out because we were overheating. It wasn't that. Anyways, we're on the beach and her car's getting serviced in town, and it turns out someone put the wrong antifreeze in the car. And I turned to my wife on the beach and I said, if poor car care is happening to us, it's happening to other people, we got to get back to Cleveland and open up a automotive repair business. So I looked at a lot of buildings, looked at a lot of shops to buy, couldn't find one, and eventually got connected up with the Rad Air folks, and back in 2014 opened up a location.
So what prompted you to join Rad Air specifically?
Well, it was, so folks that don't know, Rad Air is a franchise. And I didn't want anything to do with franchises. And I was working with a couple business brokers, and we looked at all kinds of shops to buy. And every shop I would look at was either a dog that had a lot of problems, or the owner fell back in love with it after we went through the process of tell me about your business, let's make an offer, let's go through this. And I had 2 of those that the owner ended up keeping the business and not selling it. So I had looked at every business that was for sale in Northern Ohio. I looked at every vacant building where an automotive business could open. And one of the business brokers said, I really think we should go and meet with the Rad Air folks. Let's just have lunch. And I said no many times. And he said, listen, what do you have to lose? You'll get a lunch out of it. And the thing is, I really hit it off with the folks from Rad Air. And they hadn't even seen my business plan yet. And a lot of what they talked about the first time we met was in my business plan. It's a way to engage a community, a way to approach things through transparency with clients. And the more that I started interacting with them and learning about them, I thought, maybe this is the way to go. And they had the exclusive line on the shop that I ultimately bought. These folks would only sell to a prospective franchisee. So it all worked out, and I think I'm in a better place for it. And so are our clients that get their car serviced there.
Okay, excellent. And so now you also own another business, Atomic Autosports.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What's the story behind that one?
Yeah, so I've always been involved in motorsports. As I mentioned earlier, starting off as a spectator, and then as a participant, and I volunteered for an organization where we organized events too. So when I opened up an automotive repair business, naturally people who compete in things like time trials, track days, and autocross events would bring their vehicles to me for performance work. Tires, upgraded brakes, upgraded suspension, fluid exchanges. That business has grown over the last 10 years to the point where a couple years ago I said, we need to market it differently because I didn't want the consumer getting confused if they're going to Rad Air in Wickliffe. Is that a race shop? Is it a performance shop? Is it general auto repair? Well, it is general auto repair. And if you look at back some of our marketing back then, it could get a little confusing because we were posting a lot and some of the digital marketing really centered on motorsports. So now we market it separately under Atomic, same building, same team, same equipment, but it clears it up a little bit. And it's a brand that's really grown over the last couple of years. We have merchandise now for sale in our showroom, and for someone to come in and buy a sweatshirt that has Atomic on it, it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So it has a different vibe, a different feel, but it's a different customer too.
Okay. And all right, so you're in that racing world, so tell me a bit more about that. I know you're really into that. You set up a team, right?
Yeah, I did, and I chuckle because the way that this all came together is kind of comical, but it's headed in an awesome direction. So if we go back to COVID, it was 2020, my business partner on the franchise side of things said, Bill, I want to get into wheel-to-wheel racing, and will you help me get my SCCA license? So SCCA is Sports Car Club of America. I said, sure. He's like, well, I have a friend of a friend who's selling a Dodge Neon with a trailer. Now, this Dodge Neon has been a race car its entire life. Well, I kept nagging Andy, are we going to go look at that Neon? Is this something you want to do? Should I take it off my radar? I should have known then just to stop asking. But we ended up looking at it. Now, during COVID, race cars and trailers were catching a premium because everyone wanted a project that was into motorsports. We got this car for a song and a dance. It didn't need very much, and we put it on track for a couple test days, and we have a great time with it. Fast forward, I think it might have been 2021, we enter the car into an endurance race at Nelson Ledges Road Course, which is in Garrettsville, Ohio. And it's an 8-hour race Saturday, 8-hour race Sunday. And there's 4 of us racing each day, so we do driver changes and pit stops. And Saturday goes awesome. I invite one of our technicians out to come out Sunday just to help us if we need some mechanical help. It was great because we broke a wheel bearing. He was able to change it. After that weekend, we're like, we got to go endurance racing. We're going to go into this, and we're going to bring some other folks into it. Well, what started off as 1 Neon is now 5 Neons. 3 of them race. We have a team that's composed of Rad Air employees and a bunch of our friends. It's turned into a business because we have more seats than we have people, so we rent those seats to other racers who don't have their own race car. So they pay us to race with us. We have sponsors and partners. It's really become its own job as part of it. But the reason we do it is it supports our culture, which is fun and being inclusive and finding something else to do. I like to say if all we do all day is work on cars, then that's all we do. What else do we do? How do we get involved with the community? How do we get engaged with other things? Well, this motorsports is just another outlet for our employees to have something to look forward to at the end of the day or the weekend. The other part of it is, I'm also on the franchise side of our business now and responsible for franchise development. Well, we use the race team to help promote the fact that, hey, well, you want your own Rad Air, you could get one. And it's led to a couple conversations this year. We'll see where they lead. But it's a great way to promote our brand and highlight our culture as well. So the guys on the team like to joke that I dragged one of them in, and they started tumbling down the hill, and they grabbed everyone along with them. But it is a lot of fun.
Oh, very cool. All right, so you're obviously doing a lot. What are the challenges associated with, just your professional life in general there?
Yeah, so the big thing right now, and a lot of the viewers are probably dealing with the same, it's calendar and time management. And a lot of us are wired that we want to do it all, and we want to be involved with everything. We were talking about that before we started recording. How do you say no to certain things? Because you want it done right, you want to be involved, maybe you want to get the accolades, you want the content, you want the pictures, all that kind of good stuff. But at some time, business leaders, entrepreneurs, need to say no. And that's really the toughest part is you've got all these interests, you have all these ideas, you have all these things you have going. How do you keep them moving? And more importantly, how do you say yes to the right things and no to the things that really won't move it forward? Somebody told me recently, you always say, I'm trying to keep all the balls in the air. Somebody said, just don't drop the glass ones. Oh, that's an interesting way to, keep the real important ones up in the air. The other ones, if they're not made of glass, you can let them fall.
Yeah, I like that. I could use that advice myself. Okay, so that's a huge challenge overall professionally. But what would you say is the biggest challenge you faced in your business?
Well, it's making that important decision quickly. And we talked about empathy earlier, and you have to have that, but you also have to be decisive, and sometimes you can't always be Mr. Nice Guy. And I was asked not too long ago, what's the biggest mistake I've made in business? And I said, not firing fast enough. And sometimes, you don't want to fire someone. We'll use that as an example. You don't want to fire them because you feel badly for them or their family, but maybe it's best for them, and you already know what's best for your business. So that's probably the biggest thing in business is just having to make those tough decisions quickly. Growing up in corporate America, before I owned the shop, I was in corporate America. Sometimes we just overanalyze things. And, it wasn't necessarily that important to make a decision that day or that week. And you get into that mindset. When you're a small business owner, you have to make decisions that fast to keep things moving. And the longer you make a decision, the tougher it is.
All right. And so looking ahead to the future here, what do you see for each of your businesses? How do you think Rad Air and Atomic Autosports are going to move out, say 5 years from now?
Yeah, Atomic continues to grow. There's been thoughts of how do we separate it from the Wycliffe entity and give it its own presence, maybe even its own facility, as that part of the business has grown. We've actually just hired a fabricator part-time to do welding, roll cage installations. So cars, from a safety perspective, if they're competing on track, sometimes need to have a roll cage. We're gonna have some exclusive clubs starting. So the next 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if this does have its own standalone location, maybe even a second location, co-located at a track somewhere. And then, the whole Rad Air entity, so we have the franchise company, and then we have the locations that I'm strongly affiliated with. It's just every year we just continue to grow a little bit more. Ideally, we'd love to have a couple more new locations opened up. In Ohio, that's our target where we want to continue to grow. We can franchise in other states, but growth in Ohio is certainly on our radar. And then one of the things that started during COVID was just a real good focus on the employee. What can we do to make sure that they're supported? Because we learned a lot during COVID. Some of them had spouses and partners that were involved in healthcare. Some of them had childcare constraints. We still use that for flexible scheduling. So where I'm going with that, in 5 years, I want to make sure that we're known as one of the great automotive employers in the region. And for that matter, one of the great employers regardless of industry, just because of that focus on the employee. And I think if we have a great focus on the employee, the client will see great results when they're getting their car serviced.
Okay, very cool. What are your visions for expanding the company, or how do you want to go about that?
Yeah, so the biggest thing we do right now is marketing. We help all of our franchisees with their marketing. A lot of that right now is digital, paid search, SEO type items. Print media is still very big, so that's the biggest way we help our franchisees. In terms of growth, there's a lot of our industry has not had serious conversations about succession planning like they should have. Now, if you look at what was being talked about a year ago or 10 years ago versus what's talked about now, it is talked about a little bit more, which is great. But if shop owners don't have a succession plan, then they really don't have anything to sell when it's time for them to retire. And that's where, Rad Air can come in. That's the easiest way someone can open up a Rad Air location and that's how I did it. In Wycliffe, the sellers were, the people that owned the business said, we're done, we want out. Great, I'll open it and I'll continue the legacy, so to speak. That's going to be a big part of our growth. We call them conversions. It's the fastest way to open a shop. If you have a good team, you already got the team there, you're known as an automotive location. So next year, we're really going to be focusing more on talking with existing shop owners that want to retire, or shop owners that say, hey, I'm stuck. I thought I could do this on my own. I need your help. Should I become a Rad Air location?
Speaking of, more things that you're doing, you have a podcast. Tell me a bit about that and why you decided to start one.
Yeah. So it's called the Late to Grid podcast. So it's motorsports focused. And I interview men and women who compete some way with their vehicles, whether that's autocross, and if folks don't know what autocross is, if you've ever seen a parking lot set up with a bunch of cones and people are racing through those against the clock, that's an autocross. They might do track days or high performance events or time trials, which the last three I just mentioned are all on track. So I interview the men and women that are involved with that so they can share their story and their journey. So if the listener might say, well, I can do that, or I didn't know the next step. And it was just a case of the fear of missing out. The whole world has a podcast now, it seems like. And so I'm finishing up my 4th season with it. And I just thought if I didn't start it, I would regret not doing it. And it's helped me along my motorsports journey. When I go to the track and someone says, hey, you're Bill with the podcast, I always joke, I'm like, oh, you're my listener. But it really helps me, when someone says, yeah, this one episode really spoke to me, and it helped me with this next step, or I got faster as a result of it. It's a lot of work, but it is fun, and it's just another way to be involved in the car community. And I didn't think about it at the time. It's actually helped drive business to Atomic Autosports, because a local listener be like, oh, that shop, I know where I live close to there. I can take my car there. So it's helped out in that regard. And I always get asked why the name Late to Grid. All right, so before a car goes on track, it gets what's called grid. That's where all the cars are staged up before they go out to do whatever they're going to do on track. Well, I am always late. Always. Wasn't today, but I'm always late. And that was true with racing too. So we would be going to a race weekend. I would roll up 30 minutes late. We'd be unpacking the car. And the reason we were late is I was still working on it that morning to get it ready for the race. So I just thought, you know what? This might help people not be late to grid, or late to their motorsports journey, or late to racing. So it's been a fun journey.
Very nice. And so what does your professional legacy look like?
It's back to the people. So one of the things I noticed when I got into this industry is we didn't have a good focus on the employee. If a shop hired a person, they said, hey, okay, the Cintas guy brings your uniform on Monday. You can roll your toolbox right over there, and when I bring new orders out, I set them over there. That's pretty much what our industry has done. And they hired just based on, do you have tools? And it looks like you're breathing. Do you have any troubles I should know about? Great, you're hired. Now we have to be so focused on that employee because we don't want to lose them. If they're the right employee, we want to focus in on them. So I want my legacy to really be that, we gave our best for our employees. We provided them everything they needed. We gave them an environment that was inclusive and supportive and provided growth. And then if someone turns around and looks at, okay, what did Bill do or what did Rad Air do? Yeah, they focused on the employee. And I talk a lot about career planning, and there's a great example of we have a technician who then was promoted to foreman, who is now running a service center. That was his career plan, not mine. That was his. That's where I want to go, Bill. And we were able to make that happen. And that's part of that legacy, is just helping people along their journey. I have a saying, I don't want you to be the best mechanic or technician around. I want you to be the best man around. And if we had women in our facilities, I would say the same thing. I'd love to see more women in our industry, but I just want you to be the best person you can be, because that includes all elements of your life. And if you're a great technician, and a great father, a great mother, a great supporter in the community, you're going to be an all-around great person.
Bill may wear a lot of hats, but he's got experience at managing. Just like the crew chief of a race team, he's got to make sure all his initiatives stay fine-tuned to run at top speed when the rubber meets the road. Education, technology, and keeping people inspired all play a key role in that. Join us next time to learn more about what Bill sees for the auto repair industry and how he keeps his businesses at the head of the pack. All right, Bill, we're going to play a little game called B-Sides to get to know you better. I'm going to give you a series of choices, and you tell us which ones you prefer. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start with some general questions. Beach or mountains?
Oh, mountains.
Okay. Running or mountain biking?
Running.
Okay. Kayaking or skiing?
That's a tough one. Kayaking.
Okay. 1982 Datsun 280ZX or 1966 Ford GT40?
Oh, the GT40.
Okay. 24 Hours of Le Mans or the Indy 500?
Never have been to France, so we're going to Le Mans.
Oh, okay. Dale Earnhardt or Richard Petty?
Well, since Richard Petty kissed my wife's hand, I think I have to choose him.
Okay. All right. Who's your favorite current NASCAR racer to follow?
Oh, maybe Ryan Blaney.
Okay. All right. Now, you're going south. Are you taking a trip to Daytona Speedway or Talladega?
Talladega.
Okay. I approve of this answer.
Yes.
Which movie is better, Cars 1 or 3?
Cars 1.
Okay. Wall Street or Days of Thunder?
That's a toss-up, but Wall Street always gets me going.
Okay. Now, this is Vehicle Care Rockstars, so let's move on to your musical tastes. Classic rock or country?
Classic rock.
Okay. Hip hop or pop?
Hip hop.
All right. Three Doors Down or Counting Crows?
3 Doors Down.
Okay. Kiss or The Cure?
The Cure.
All right. Billy Joel or Harry Connick Jr.?
Harry Connick Jr.
First concert you attended?
Aretha Franklin.
Last concert you attended?
3 Doors Down and Creed.
Best concert you attended?
Harry Connick Jr. in the early 90s.
All right, Bill, you're a rock star. Thank you so much.
Thank you.